Hey, what's up? This video is brought to you by ease.com.
EAZE.com, $20 off any purchase over $50. Promo code HAM, promo code HAM.
Don't forget, subscribe to this channel and like this video.
Also, check out our podcast below in the description. We talk a lot of football.
All right, John, one of our favorites, Steve Young, spoke to Matt Maiocco of NBC Sports Bay Area at a virtual event about Dwight Clark. And one of the things Steve Young said is this: one of the easier hurdles is coming from behind. People aren't ready for you. You get good really fast, and you kind of run through the season and run the table. It almost happened last year for the 49ers. That's the best kind of way to do it. Now comes the hard work. And if they could do it this year, you've got to think that they can do it every year for the next 4 or 5 years. So Steve Young's point is this year's about to be harder, but if you run it back, if you're the 49ers, and prove that you could make a Super Bowl run again, now that's when we should start buying you have a potential dynasty in place.
Crazy how much it changes in a year. If I would have told you at this same time, August 11th, 2019, the Niners are going to cruise to the Super Bowl and have an easy lead against Mahomes, you'd have been like, fuck, John, you're drinking a little too much Kool-Aid. And now anything short of like, yeah, the Niners are going to make the playoffs and should win the division again, you feel like, you're a hater almost. So it just, when things change fast in the NFL, they can also change back fast. You're not guaranteed to be good, and this is kind of what Steve's saying, for just years, like what the Patriots done. Hell, I'd say more like the Saints and the Chiefs that have really just won since Andy got there and obviously since Sean Payton got there. It's difficult to do that. Yeah. Just to go to the Vikings. Look at the Vikings. I know they got to one NFC championship, but they go to the playoffs every year. They've had a really successful 4 or 5 year stretch, right, under Mike Zimmer. I think that's what the Niners, the goal is to win the Super Bowl. But if I tell you right now, they go to the playoffs for the next 5 years, Kyle Shanahan will just solidify himself as one of the clear. He might be the best top 2 or 3 coach in the league. No one argues. But it's hard to do. And this division, I got NFL Network on in the background. It had a tweet building something special, and it was just the back shot of Kyler Murray standing next to Hopkins. You go, oh yeah, they got DeAndre Hopkins. And that's the worst team in the division with a quarterback that's really scary. Obviously, Seattle was inches away from winning the division. And then the Rams, I just think, might come back to earth a little bit. I mean, they technically did last year, but their earth is still like they got too many good players to be some scrub squad, right? It's a tough division.
And too good of a coach, we think, right?
Yeah, he is a good coach.
So two of the things Steve identified, 2 things. Aside from, we've talked about like Super Bowl hangover, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about 2 different things. One of the challenges is that the rest of the league knows you're the Kings. Or, he knows they didn't win the championship, but they're viewed that way, certainly in the NFC. And they're everybody's homecoming game. The other thing he said is, you've got to know most that everything the Niners did last year with Kyle, anything that was innovative, everybody now has the book on. So now you've got to evolve again. So I think that's the bigger part of this, because you're not going to be playing teams with crowds, right? You're not going to Seattle with the crowd, in all likelihood. Maybe. We'll see. But in all likelihood, I think it's more just about that you're at the top of everybody's to-do list. Arizona's to-do list is big. The Niners' to-do list is Saints, Packers, Vikings, right? Seahawks. Like, that's Rams. The better you are, the fewer teams on your off-season to-do list. So the Niners are on every single team they play's off-season to-do list. If we can't figure out the 49ers a way to compete with them, then we're wasting our time, right?
My question, though, is, guys, like, I think we talk about that sometimes when you kind of do a new scheme, like kind of what the Ravens are doing. When everyone says they're eventually going to figure that out. Maybe not this year with Corona, but like they're not just going to be able to run this triple option down people's throats forever. It happened with Kaepernick. It happened for a minute with RG3. But I'd say when Kyle runs this offense, and even going back to his dad, and he has good players, which he does now, and at times in Atlanta, at times in Washington, definitely at times in Houston, his dad in Denver, it works. Like the scheme has been the same, different iterations and additions to it, but this shit works for multiple decades. You've had the blueprint for forever. So I actually don't worry about people like figuring out Kyle, because Kyle to me is like a Belichick. Like, you don't know what you're getting every game. He has basic plays like inside, outside zone, but like the scheme and the game plan is complete. Like when you play the Ravens, the Niners did last year, and we just saw a lot of them because they were really good and they were on primetime games. You just like, what's coming? Well, they're going to fucking run these zone read gives. I don't know who has the ball. It was crazy.
Well,
we've
you know what I would
seen
say,
that
John?
before.
It's like you can take a guitar and put it in my hands or your hands. Useless instrument. You put it in John Mayer's hands. It's an entirely different instrument. You can take the same playbook, and this is where I think you're right. Kyle Shanahan's genius isn't just the plays. It's the timing. It's the rhythm. It's all of that together, which is not – you don't just plan for that, right? B Rabbit, what was Eminem's name in 8 Mile?
Yeah, B Rabbit.
Like it's always a freestyle that you can't prepare for it. Hell, he's more prepared for you. Clarence's parents have a real good marriage. Yeah. Cheddar Bob shot himself in the leg. Like he's just going to be one step ahead.
Now, where I do put validity is Seattle games when they're both good are always going to be big. I think the LA games and even the Arizona games, like they're just the division games in the NFL. I think we all acknowledge any team in their division, the games are always tighter. We see it all year long. I think it is the non-divisional games, like you play Washington again this year, right? Or you play the New York Giants or the Jets. It's a big deal for Sam Darnold to play you. If Sam Darnold gets that win on his belt,
right,
it's a big fucking deal for his career, for his resume, the way people talk about him. If Daniel Jones beats you, like that little stretch, week 2 and 3, wouldn't you say if one of those two quarterbacks were to beat the Niners and play well, that'd be a huge deal for that individual player.
Right.
So that's where I think like you get extra
for
credit.
The coaches.
Yeah, Joe Judge or Adam Gase.
Defensive coordinators.
Like if Joe Judge beats, they're playing on a given game, the Arizona Cardinals, he's not getting that much credit. He beats the Niners, like, damn, can this Joe Judge coach? Right?
Yep.
Can Daniel Jones, is he a franchise quarterback? And every situation you get, like Dak Prescott beats you when you play the Cowboy. Oh, Dak Prescott's beating the Niners. You got to pay his ass now. Like it adds juice to every conversation. And that's where, to me, the Niners were not at last year until like the end of the season when they were like Steve said, they had racked up all these wins, even though they had done them the right, like they had kicked people's asses. Well, this year, like every win you get will be like the Patriots wins. Like you get credit for wins when you're good. It's just it's harder to win because every team's just throwing the kitchen sink.
You know, the other thing is like when you start a golf tournament with the expectation that you can win the golf tournament, there's a lot of pressure on your first shot because you think, well, if I'm going to be in contention to win, then every shot I hit on Thursday, if I go OB, have to take a penalty, that stroke might be the difference between winning in the end or not. Last year when the Niners started, we thought it was a big year. This is an important year. We could identify, oh, they should win this. They better win this game. But we didn't know, man, this whole thing in the end, it's going to come down to an inch for home field advantage in the NFC playoffs. But when you're a team that's expected to win from the jump, now every inch, every touchdown you give up, every interception you throw, every little ankle tweak, right? You go, oh, this guy's got an ankle tweak week 3. Is he going to get back in time for that week 7 matchup that we think could be the difference between home field and no home field? So now you just everybody knows that every moment has a lot riding on it, right? Even if that game is week 2. It just changes everything.
God, it has to be an insane 20-year run as a Patriot fan, right? Every game's mattered for a long period of time.
Every game's been on national television.
It's just you just hope for a 5-year run, and I think Niner fans can relate. Like the Harbaugh era it felt like you and I watched it. It was big.
Yep.
And it was 3 years. What Brady and Belichick had was basically 20 years of that, and it's the NFL's unmatched when you get like that, right? Rodgers kind of had like a 7-8 year stretch. Every game mattered. Every playoff game was obviously huge. It just feels like it kind of in the regular season's a little different, but when you are on that level, the Niners went last year. What did it feel like? 6-7 games for the season. This year will probably feel a little more like maybe 12 games. Like there might be like a Giants game where they're blowing them out, but even like a game against the Eagles, the Cowboys, all the NFC West game or the AFC West games. Excuse me, they're playing the who do they play? The AFC.
Isn't it the West?
Or is it they play East? The Raiders this year?
No.
Yeah, they play the AFC East. They play the AFC East. So those games will feel a little weird, right? Because most of those teams, like, it's hard to get up for the Dolphins games. And really the NFC East a little down. So it'd just be, you'd say the Eagles, the Cowboys, and if Cam's playing, I'd say you'd say the Bills. The Bills game's going to be big because they're a playoff
It's going to
team.
be it'll feel like one of the biggest games of the year, I think, when we get to it. I mean,
Yeah,
if we were to circle,
all the divisional games will feel like and the Packer and the Saints game.
And the Bills game will be easy to break it down into like, all right, we think this is an elite defense. Let's just see. Here's a mobile quarterback. Those guys are tough. We've known that.
Really good defensive coach.
All right, let us know what you think about what Steve Young had to say and what we had to say about what Steve Young had to say down in the comments below.
Like the video.
Ease.com, promo code HAM. Tell your friends, tell your friends.
Do it.